appreciate the chance to speak. My presentation tonight is going to be centered around a recent announcement that's taken place in Venezuela by the leadership there that there will be, thanks, Ben.
Sorry, I'm short.
That's okay. They've announced recently that there will be a dramatic transformation of various branches of the police. The leadership there is trying to bring them closer in line with the desires and aspirations of the country's ongoing revolution. So we want to discuss a little bit tonight about the details around that and some of the events that led up to this announcement. But of course, as socialists in the United States who are in the midst of a growing movement against the epidemic of racist police terror, we also want to ask ourselves the question, what is the role of police under socialism? So before we get into that question, I'm just going to go over some details of what's been taking place in Venezuela. So on October 1st of 2014, 27-year-old Robert Serra, who was the youngest elected representative to the Venezuela's National Assembly and leader of the youth wing of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, or the PSUV, was assassinated alongside his companion Maria Herrera in their home. The PSUV, for those who don't know, is the revolutionary party at the head of the Bolivarian Revolution, which has made great strides in the process of transforming Venezuela into a socialist society, in spite of the continuous attempts to destroy the revolution by imperialism and its functionaries in Venezuela's right wing. President of Venezuela and the PSUV, Nicolas Maduro, has placed the blame for Serra and Herrera's gruesome assassination squarely on radical factions within the country's extreme right, as well as at Colombia's reactionary ex-president Álvaro Uribe. It is believed that Uribe and Colombian paramilitaries assisted and funded the assassination in collaboration with members of the municipal police force, who also bribed Serra's closest bodyguard in order to get access to him to commit this crime. According to Maduro, 2 attempts against the president of the National Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, and the Minister of Education, Hector Navarro, were prevented in the days following Serra's assassination. Only a few days after Serra's assassination on October 8th in the Quinta Crespo area of Caracas, the Special Investigative Police Body, or the CICPC, entered the high-rise Manfredi building, home to 242 families, allegedly to make arrests relating to an undisclosed criminal case. The CICPC, the investigative police body, were met by armed members of the Colectivo known as the Revolution Shield, and in the 8-hour standoff that followed, 5 members of various pro-government collectives were fatally shot. The right-wing and imperialist media have continually attempted to paint the collectives as criminal organizations. In actuality, the collectives have been an indispensable part of the Bolivarian Revolution and continue to play a critical role in advancing socialism and democracy in Venezuela. Beyond their role as centers of direct democracy, which is a process that far surpasses anything that we've seen in this faux democracy of this country, the armed self-defense of the revolution carried out by these collectives has played a critical role in preventing several right-wing counter-revolutionary coup attempts since President Chavez and Maduro have been in power with the PSUV. In the days following the incident at Quinta Crespo, the then Interior Justice Minister Miguel Rodriguez Torres blamed the collectivos themselves, calling them criminals and infiltrators who were using the collective as a front. Several pro-government groups and individuals echoed this remark, but according to Venezuela Analysis, while only the most cryptic information has been released about the victims themselves, the very description of infiltrators is exactly how a large section of the left wing has long viewed the CICPC and other rotted branches of national security forces within the revolution. The left and the collectives quickly mobilized a wave of protests, calling for the dismissal of Torres, and 2 weeks after the incident, President Maduro did just that, removing Torres from his position and replacing him with Freddy Bernal. Bernal is a leading member of the PSUV. He's a former mayor of a municipality inside of Caracas, and he joined the Bolivarian Revolution after leading a police uprising against the former dictator Carlos Andrés Pérez. Maduro's appointment of Bernal came alongside his announcement of the revolutionary transformation of Venezuela's police force and his signing of, the law of the police revolution. One of our leading members, Gloria La Riva in San Francisco, recently interviewed Bernal, and that interview is on our website, pslweb.org, and can be read in full there. I really encourage everyone to read the article, as well as a lot of other analysis that's online right now about what's taking place. But I do want to take a moment to sort of quote at length the interview that Bernal had with Liberation News. So he says, after joining the revolutionary movement, we, and he's speaking of the police forces, had the opportunity to be members of the Constituent National Assembly in 1999 after Chavez's presidency began. And in that Constituent Assembly, I had the honor of co-authoring the 2 articles that pertain to citizen security, Articles 55 and 332. That is where we first stated that citizen security is a co-responsibility of the citizenry together with the state, not just the state itself. Article 332 laid out the current police system of all the bodies, national police, a criminal investigative corps, a firefighters force, and one of disaster administration. These are called the organs of citizen security. In Venezuela, we have advanced significantly in terms of the police in recent years. We created the Experimental University of Security Sciences, and in that university, the Bolivarian National Police is being formed. It is in a process of creation and growth. Nevertheless, in the same way that a revolution must continually renovate, Comandante Hugo Chavez left us advice in his legacy, which is 3 R's: review, rectification, and renewal. President Maduro has ordered the application of what we call the 3 R's to the police. He has ordered a revolution in terms of the police. Just 1 month ago, he gave me the honor, together with a team, to carry out the transformation of the police forces to end up with police forces that do what the revolution deserves, what the people deserve. So essentially, that's the end of this long quote. So essentially, the new laws will act as a legal instrument to revise, rectify, strengthen, and restructure the country's police forces. Far-reaching police reform is expected to be ready for implementation by early next year. 2 of the most interesting elements of this initiative are detailed by Bernal in his interview with Liberation News. The first is a Citizens Committee of Police Control, where, according to Bernal, in each municipality, a group of persons will be elected from among the social and community leaders of each community, to whom the police will have to render accounts of their work on a permanent basis, and the people will maintain vigilance and control over their actions. The observations of the Citizens Control Committees will have enforcement power to correct the police forces. The second is what he called preventive policing, in which the police are members of the communities that they will work in. Bernal describes this as a police that is a friend of that community, not one that goes to the community when a crime is committed. It will not be a police that goes to the community to repress. It is a police that will work on issues such as abandoned babies, school truancy, to help prevent teen pregnancy, that works with dysfunctional families, with children starting to go to school. It is what we call police close at hand. It is a police that coexists with the people in a permanent manner, as we call it, the peace of justice. These are 2 very important concepts. The communal police that finds together with the people the solution to problems, and the second element, the citizens' committees of police control. The people will have a mechanism of permanent control over the police. I want to make clear that the reform and reconstruction of the police in Venezuela is far from a complete and finished process. That is because the revolution itself is far from a finished process. As Marxists, we know that for a real socialist revolution to take place, the old state institutions of repression built on the power of the old elite have to be completely destroyed and replaced with new institutions based on people power. In Venezuela, there still is a powerful capitalist class and a capitalist economy that's based on wage labor and private expropriation. But there has been a revolutionary process nonetheless, and the old ruling class institutions have been so discredited that the socialist-oriented government has been able to purge the military, the police, and the courts of their old leadership, and also to build entirely new institutions like militias, police, and military forces from scratch. These new institutions cannot be entirely pure of the Venezuelan capitalist class, but they have raised the possibility of people's power and shown the socialist orientation of the Venezuelan government. What Bernal described about the role of police under socialism proves this orientation. In the later period of communism, when the revolutionary transformation and complete reorganization of society does away with all class antagonism, and the usefulness of the state to act as a force of class repression has expired, there will no longer be a need for police at all. But under socialism, however, which is essentially the period of transition from capitalism to communism, the productive forces of society have been nationalized and the working class holds power, but still there exists antagonism between the old ruling class and the working class, as well as the legacies of capitalism. In this situation, there still is a need for police. So the question for us is, what is the role of police in this society? Now, in his interview, Bernal made some observations of the police force in the United States and its role in the repression and terrorism committed against working class communities, primarily Black and Latino communities. His observations were fairly simple, and I don't think anyone in this room would be at all shocked by what he was talking about. And yet they were observations that no bourgeois politician in this country would dare to speak. That in itself should serve as a clear difference between the roles of police in socialist society versus under capitalism. That a leading member of the police force in a country thousands of miles away can make very reasonable but damning observations regarding the cops in this country, where the supposedly left-leaning mayor that resides in this very city could never utter, is an indictment of the entire system. But more substantially, let's do a quick compare and contrast between what's happening in Venezuela and what's happening here in the United States. In Venezuela, the revolutionary government has made a clear break with the old society, and for years, the majority of the police have been mobilized in defense of the people rather than the ruling class. But some degree of police corruption and betrayal of the revolution have hung on and have led to assassination and violence by some elements of the police force. In response to this, the left and the collectivos have mobilized to demand change, and the revolutionary government responded not with tear gas and police batons, but with immediate and sweeping action to bring the police under the control of the people and place them in the defense of the revolution. In the US, on the other hand, the police have from the start been used as a tool of repression against the people. There has never once been a serious attempt to reform the police in this country. Instead, the police have undergone continuous and daunting militarization. We know that the cops have been used, unfortunately with a great deal of success, as a battering ram against every revolutionary movement that has sprung up in this country. And over recent decades, they have taken on the undeniable characteristic of occupation forces in poor and working class Black and brown communities. The epidemic of police terror and violence, in which a Black person is killed every 28 hours in this country, has reached a fever pitch. The left and the people here in the United States, as in Venezuela, have mobilized to demand change. But here, we have been met with warfare in the streets, and at best indifference in the halls of power. The police here in New York City have been allowed to declare war against the entire city for our audacity to dare to criticize them for gunning down our sisters and brothers. And the city government has responded with the most ineffectual, mild criticism imaginable. The cops are frothing at the mouth towards Mayor de Blasio, who is such a staunch critic of these racist, murdering cops that his administration recently assured the world on national television that the policies of broken windows and stop and frisk are here to stay. In the face of the mass movement, the cops have declared that under no circumstances will they allow the people to have control or even oversight of their actions. And the only thing that the liberal establishment has been able to muster up in the face of this so-called blue coup, as people are calling it, is to demand that the cops get back to work arresting and ticketing workers for petty offenses. There cannot be much more a clear contrast, in my opinion, than that. The role of the government and the police under socialism is to advance the revolution, to protect it from right-wing counter-revolution, and to secure the well-being of the people. That is what has been happening in the past few months in Venezuela. That is the path that the PSUV, in hand with the people and their grassroots organizations, have set for their country. The role of the police under capitalism, on the other hand, is to repress the possibility of revolutionary change, to protect the ruling class and their property from the people, and to secure the well-being of this vile, racist system. That is the path that the ruling class and their representatives in the government have set forth for our country, and it's our job to change that. What's taking place in Venezuela right now is very exciting, and hopefully this discussion and the discussion that will take place after this presentation will help all of us to better understand the process that is unfolding at the moment. Simultaneously, of course, we should continue to be in the streets here advancing the growing and inspiring movement taking place against state terrorism and police brutality. That movement has thrust millions of people into action over the past weeks and months, and many of the people in this room have been instrumental to its success. I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone here about the work the PSL and others have been doing lately, as most of you have been the ones that are doing the organizing work around that. But for those who haven't been able to plug in or who are unaware of the work that the party is doing around police brutality, I'd encourage you to stick around after the meeting, and I'm sure some of our comrades can tell you about the many ways you can get involved. With that, thanks very much, and I look forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.